Sometimes I feel I'm scared to live. Living is what scares me. Dying is easy.
This is the Bare Bones
podcast.
Oh! I just kind of held my breath for a few seconds.
So did we start?
I guess. I don't know.
Welcome back, everybody.
I hit record. This is an intro.
We have to come up with like an official intro where we're like.
I have an official intro.
Back. Well, no, but it's like when we start. It's like.
Yeah, but we like introduce ourselves. That's like our intro.
YouTubers are always like, "Hey guys, welcome back to my channel today."
Yo, what's up, my diggity dogs? Coming right back at what's the thing Philip DeFranco says?
This is V&D coming back to you again to Bare Bones.
What's up, you beautiful bastards? Yeah, that's Philip DeFranco. I don't know. I feel like our intro is just, "Hey guys, what's going on?" It's some bullshit.
Yeah.
We always have some stupid shit at the beginning.
Of course. Well, you don't even know when you press record, so all we hear is.
Okay. I'm David.
This is Vicky.
And this is Bare Bones Podcast. Vicky, do you know what our topic today is?
I have no idea.
The viewers know because it's going to be the fucking title. How much have I hyped you for this topic?
A lot. You've been saying, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be so good. It's so exciting."
I don't know. I thought this was an exciting one because initially, so I heard it on another podcast. They talked about this topic, and I was like, "Whoa, that's interesting. I kind of want to cover this too," because it's one that like the official answer for what happened is kind of bullshit. Like we'll get into it.
Yeah, I'm interested.
All right, pulling up the script. Gloria Ramirez was born January 11th, 1963, in Riverside, California. She led a relatively normal life. She got married. She had children. She lived, laughed. I'm sure she prayed sometimes.
And loved.
Is it live, laugh, love? I thought
It's live, laugh, love.
Fuck! That joke doesn't even work! God damn it! God fucking damn it! I thought I was so fucking funny for that. God!
Thank you
I'm gonna
today's
close this.
episode.
I'm fucking done. I legit, no shit, wrote that. I thought it was prayed. And I was
live,
like,
laugh, love.
and I was like, oh, that's gonna be funny. You know, just a little quirky humor at the very beginning. God fucking damn it. She lived, she laughed. I'm sure she fucking loved sometimes, okay? Reverend Brian Taylor called her, quote, "a friend to everyone she met and a joker who brought joy to others," unquote. By all accounts, Gloria was a kind woman and she lived a good life.
So she was pretty
Good person,
happy. Yeah.
pretty happy.
Normal life.
You know, nothing bad ever happens to happy people. Nothing bad happens to good people in this world.
Mike fall number 1.
Oh my god! Every episode, the mic falls. Every fucking episode, the mic falls.
Well, in our defense, we're sharing one right now.
And we're on the couch.
So.
You could tell, listeners can tell how much effort was put into this show.
For all you 17 out there, baby.
Actually, our episode 3 at the time of this recording is at 18 views.
Oh, damn.
Aw, she heading up there.
Okay, honestly, I need people to comment to see what they think. This is like...
What kind of thoughts do you want to hear from them?
I don't know, just in general. About the topics, like...
Speaking of the topic, let's get back on topic because Gloria was a good lady, and as we know, nothing bad happens to good people in this world. But in her early 30s, Gloria was diagnosed with late-stage cervical cancer. She was given only around a year to live. On February 19th, 1994, About 8 a.m., Gloria was rushed to the Riverside Hospital. She was undergoing a rapid heartbeat and a drop in blood pressure. She could hardly breathe and was answering questions incoherently. A cervical cancer had crashed her health greatly. Gloria was rushed to Riverside Hospital in the back of an ambulance. She was suffering tachycardia and Cheney strokes, respiration. I'm gonna be honest, in my EMT courses, we talked about Cheney stroke. I can't tell you what they are. I don't remember. I just remember it's something not good.
Mm-hmm.
She responded to questions with only short, brief answers. A respiratory therapist in the ER, Maureen Welch, who we'll talk about later, she would later comment that the only thing unusual with Gloria's situation was her age. Typically, a patient showing symptoms such as this would be a much older person. One of the paramedics in that ambulance noted that while administering an IV on Gloria, a little bit of blood came out and splattered on the ambulance floor. Keep that in mind.
Interesting.
So, once inside the emergency room, Gloria was rushed into surgery so the doctors could get to work. She was injected with, oh boy.
Is it a big word?
If you think last episode I was tripping up on trying to pronounce words, diazepam, midazolam,
Diazepam.
That's
Midazolam. Lorazepam.
to sedate her. It sounds like different Jewish cuisine. When it became obvious the treatment was not working, the medical team attempted to defibrillate her heart. It was at this time that the medical staff in the room noted that Gloria's skin had an oily sheen to it. Some members also remarked on a slight garlicky smell they thought was coming from her mouth.
Huh. So does garlic, like that
Normally
smell,
people's mouth doesn't smell like garlic.
I know, so can it be like from another drug or something?
Who knows? We'll see. A nurse, Susan Kane, inserted a needle into Gloria's arm to draw blood. She noticed a strong ammonia-like odor. Kane handed the needle to Maureen Welch, the respiratory therapist we talked about earlier. She also thought the needle smelled like ammonia. Kane tried to see if she could get closer to Gloria to get a good whiff of the patient herself. Welch then passed the syringe to Julie Gorshinsky, a medical resident, who also noticed the unmistakable smell of ammonia. Gorshinsky also made note that she observed unusual manila-colored particles floating in the blood.
So was she injected with something, or?
No, they were drawing blood.
Yeah.
Okay, when you like insert IVs and stuff, think about it. You if you just try and stick it in, there's a possibility you could accidentally get an air pocket inside the person's veins or arteries, and that's not good at all for humans. So what they do is they sometimes will stick a needle and then they'll draw a little bit of blood, so that then the blood's already like squirting out and the pressure's going out. So then when they do the IV in, there's no chance of air accidentally going in first.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yep. Spoiler alert. Don't get an air bubble in your bloodstream. Not a good idea.
I'll remember that.
Yeah. At this moment, Susan Kane collapsed. She would have to be carried out of the ER. A few minutes later, Gorshinsky started to feel nausea, and she too collapsed on the floor. Finally, Maureen Welch collapsed as well. Throughout the hospital ER, medical staff started complaining of nausea and other ill symptoms. 5 people in total would have to be hospitalized elsewhere because of symptoms. I put the elsewhere just so you understood that they weren't hospitalizing them in the same hospital that they felt sick in.
No,
Like,
yeah.
They took him off site elsewhere.
Other hospitals.
That would be something if they just like were like, oh my god, we need to get you help, and they rushed out into the parking lot, did a U-turn, and came back in. Kruszinski suffered convulsions, and her breathing became labored. She also suffered pancreatic failure and necrosis in her knees. Do you know what necrosis is? It's where the flesh is literally dying, like where it is.
So you're like, it's like rotting.
So quite literally, her, in the full report, it was literally the bones in her legs were dying, like inside of her body.
How does that happen? Like, what the heck?
Something happened, and all of these nurses, the resident, the respiratory therapist, and the nurse, they got fucked up in there. The ER chief ordered an immediate evacuation of the ER. Emergency crews arrives on scene, and the emergency room was quarantined while hazmat teams prepared to enter. Now you may be sitting there and wondering, well, what about Gloria? She got rushed in there with all these symptoms, right? Mm-hmm. Gloria Ramirez had died 45 minutes after entering the ER. Cause of death was later cited as kidney failure due to metastasized cancer. So basically, they said
it was the cancer that
she died because the cancer messed up her organs.
But what about everything else causing the smells and?
What about it? We'll get into it. The hazmat crew entered and did an investigation of the area for the cause of the toxin. The team ruled out any toxic chemicals being harbored inside the hospital room. Sorry, guys, I smell ammonia. I'm starting to collapse a little. Gloria's body would eventually have to be transported in a giant metal box so as to contain the nauseatic fumes. Literally, like, her body was so toxic, like, they couldn't move her out. If you got near her, you'd faint. So the coroner's office performed an autopsy on Gloria's corpse. The autopsy team had to be in full hazmat gear in order to operate. Final autopsy reports were inconclusive, however. The county health department called in California's Department of Health and Human Services, which put two scientists, Doctors Ana Maria Osorio and Kirsten Waller, on the case. They interviewed 34 hospital staff who had been working in the emergency room on February 19th. Using a standardized questionnaire, Osorio and Waller found that the people who had developed severe symptoms, such as loss of consciousness, shortness of breath, and muscle spasms, tended to have certain things in common. People who had worked within 2 feet of Ramirez and had handled her intravenous lines had been at high risk, but other factors that correlated with severe symptoms did not appear to match a scenario in which fumes had been released. The survey found that those afflicted tended to be women rather than men, and they all had normal blood tests after the exposure. They believe the hospital workers suffered from mass hysteria. The ER staff were angered by this pronouncement. They believed an insult to their professionalism. Kruszinski denied that she had been affected by mass hysteria and pointed to her own medical history as evidence. Remember, she was the resident who started having convulsions after smelling it. After the exposure, she spent 2 weeks in the intensive care unit with breathing problems. She would be in a wheelchair and crutches for months after the incident. Remember, her knees started going necrotic. Her bones were literally dying. And these people are saying, no, you were just having mass hysteria, and you were freaking out because somebody else was freaking out. And
how does that make sense if you work in a hospital, though? Also,
I found it really interesting that they pointed out, like, oh yeah, it was women. Those silly women, they just got all caught up in the moment. If only they had a man there to straighten them out,
They shouldn't work in the hospital then if they get so emotional.
Well, that's what the investigators are saying, but all the ER workers are saying, no, that's bullshit.
No, yeah, mass hysteria is, like, what the heck even is, like, how does that even happen?
That's actually a topic I've wanted to cover at some point. There's, like, there are really interesting instances in history where like mass hysteria has been a thing, and some of them are like really goofy, and they have like really interesting theories on why they happened. A lot of them are in like the Middle Ages. I'm not going to go into it because I'm going to tangent and I'm going to start talking about it because I think it's interesting, but we'll cover that another episode.
I'd be into it.
Gloria's family was not happy with these conclusions. Pretty soon, lawsuits started, and the hospital faced some increasing pressure on figuring out a better answer. Basically, even the family were like, that's bullshit. By this time, the news of the incident inside the Riverside Hospital was all over the news. I just now noticed the redundancy in that sentence. The media heard all the tales of ammonia fumes and sick hospital staff and decided to dub Gloria the, quote, Toxic Lady, unquote. So that's nice. As always, the media are the good guys. Riverside's coroner's office contacted Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory to investigate the incident. Livermore Labs postulated that Ramirez had been using dimethyl sulfoxide, otherwise known as DMSO, a solvent used as a powerful degreaser as a home remedy for pain. Sounds really crazy, but bear with me for a second. Around this time in the 1990s, DMSO had actually become a household name in pseudoscience. Many users claiming it was a miracle cure for a wide range of symptoms and diseases. Users of this substance report that it has a garlic-like taste. Sold in gel form in hardware stores, it could also explain the greasy appearance of Ramirez's body. The Livermore scientists theorized that the DMSO in Ramirez's system might have built up owing to urinary blockage caused by kidney failure. So basically their thought is that she took this stuff, she was so desperate for a cure to her cancer, she took this stuff and she rubbed it all over her body because she had heard somewhere, oh, this is a miracle cure, you know. Pseudoscience, that's what happens.
We need to do an episode on that because there's a lot of health stuff that goes into that too.
But they think usually it would have kind of gone through her bloodstream, then passed through her urine. But because of her kidney failure from her cancer, the DMSO wasn't able to properly process through her body, so then it built up and it caused a lot of these issues. Oxygen administered by the paramedics would have combined with the DMSO to form dimethyl sulfone, DMSO2. However, remember that the paramedics administered the IV and had accidentally spilled some of her blood. That would have been after they started doing oxygen. They never reported feeling nausea or any of the other symptoms the hospital staff had suffered. Strange, right? Mm-hmm. Because remember that, like, from what the paramedics were telling us, if we think they're telling the truth, which I wonder why they would lie, she was on oxygen, which they think it reactive oxygen, and they were exposed to her blood, and they never reported seeing the sheen on her body, the garlicky smell, the ammonia smell. They never reported that stuff. It wasn't until she got on that operating table that they reported that. The scientists then continued that DMSO2 is known to crystallize at room temperature, and crystals were observed in some of Ramirez's drawn blood. Electric shocks administered during emergency defibrillation could have then converted the DMSO2 into dimethyl sulfate, DMSO4. Honestly, me trying to pronounce these words is just a tragedy. The highly toxic dimethyl ester of sulfuric acid. So basically they created sulfuric acid in her veins. Exposure to which would have caused some of the reported symptoms of the emergency room staff. The Livermore scientists theorized that the change in temperature of the blood drawn going from her warm body to the cold operation room may have contributed to its conversion from DMSO2 into DMSO4. Your thoughts?
I think it's crazy how like that just all happened like in her body, you know? Like imagine like putting that stuff on you and then it ends up like killing you in a way.
But wait. There's more. It gets worse.
Well, let's continue.
Once again, Ramirez's family was furious. They did not accept the theory now hailed by the Riverside coroner. Because basically the hospital was saying, no, it's her fault. She did something dumb that caused this to happen. They didn't accept it because 2 months after Ramirez died, her badly decomposed body was released for an independent autopsy and burial. The Ramirez family's pathologist was unable to determine a cause of death because, and this is 100% true, when the body was received, her heart was missing, her other organs were cross-contaminated with fecal matter, and her body was too badly decomposed. Her heart was missing. Nobody could explain what happened. At some point in one of the numerous autopsies done, they lost her heart.
How does that? Well, it was maybe they put it. Maybe it was like too toxic or something.
We'll go into that because there's theories on why her heart was missing.
I want to know.
On April 20th, 1994, 10 weeks after her death, Ramirez was finally buried at Olivewood Cemetery in Riverside inside of a lead casket because she was still just so toxic. However, the dimethyl sulfoxide theory has come under scrutiny in the scientific community for several reasons. The primary reason being that the proposed dimethyl sulfate generation could not be replicated in laboratory trials. Also, the symptoms displayed by the nursing staff members who fell ill while caring for Ramirez are not consistent with dimethyl sulfate exposure. Another reason the dimethyl sulfate theory is unlikely is that the odor observed by the staff was described as being like ammonia, but dimethyl sulfate is described as having a faint odor reminiscent of that of onions. The effects of dimethyl sulfate, God, if I have to say this again, it's going to be painful, also takes hours to appear, while the staff in the hospital suffered the effects almost immediately.
Well, what if she had like such high levels in her body that it just...
That wouldn't really change because some of those factors, like one, like they said, they couldn't replicate it in a laboratory, which that's red flag right there. The smell thing doesn't really match up. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, they were feeling symptoms immediately. And the problem was it's got to be something different because the chemical there, DMSO, whatever, 4-2, whatever, doesn't take effect until several hours later. But there's other theories. One proposed theory was the mixture of urine and bleach in a nearby sink.
Why would that be in a sink?
This theory has not been picked up much within the case. I don't think I think it's kind of weird to hear, but like I don't know. I just wanted to mention that one.
That's interesting.
I'm wondering what guy was at the convention and just stood up and was like, maybe somebody was pissing in the bleach sink. Like
that doesn't in a hospital.
I mean, it's a hospital. There could be just piss lying around everywhere.
They were doing surgery though. Who's pissing in the surgery room?
Doctors. They can't stop surgery, so. So, several years later, the New Times LA newspaper in guess where?
LA, wow.
Proposed an alternative explanation. Because Riverside County is one of the largest distributors in the nation of methamphetamine.
She was high on meth. Is that the theory?
No, it gets worse. The Times proposes that the hospital was used as a distribution site for the meth. The drug itself being stored inside IV bags for concealment. One of these bags could have been mixed up with a real bag and injected inside Gloria's veins.
Oh, so there's dirty
This
people out
This
there.
theory would explain the symptoms, the staph reaction, and why it was only after she entered the operating room that the reactions happened. So, doing all this reading, I think it's a mix of both. Because the meth would definitely explain the ammonia spell. Because that is a thing. The like meth, I believe it's partially made with ammonia. It's made with a lot of different chemicals, but that would explain that. The staph reactions, meth fucks your body up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're in criminal justice. You understand? Yeah.
Have you seen like the before and after pictures of people who've done meth and everything? Like.
But yeah, and then the DMSO, I kind of think maybe there's something to that. Because the sheen on her skin, that would explain it if she had put something on her skin. And maybe that was what kind of expedited her cancer and got her into the hospital. And then once she was in, somebody accidentally IV'd meth into her bloodstream.
Well, did they investigate that? Like, the whole drug thing?
I couldn't really find anything on it. And here's the other thing.
Oh.
I wonder how many people were involved because, so for instance, the coroner's office was really, really into the whole, oh, it's DMSO. Oh, when you go into a lot of the interviews and the articles and how much, it kind of comes off that almost like the town itself was very much trying to like
hide
something. Yeah. It kind of seemed like that at times between the coroner's office, the sheriff's department, like, and if this county is like the #1 meth distributor in the hospital, and it's so bad that a hospital is being used as a distribution site.
How does a hospital get involved with that in the first place?
So that's what I'm saying. How many people up this whole chain of command within this town are involved in it? And they tried to come up with a separate theory that they could use and hinge on and go, no, don't pay attention to this meth in a hospital? Who would do that? Don't pay attention to that. Yeah.
And also, it probably makes a lot of money for like people in the town. So if the meth is gone, like they're losing their source of income.
Exactly. Like, that's what I'm saying. How many people are involved? That's why I can kind of believe this theory because there was so much pushback. Gloria's family had to fight really hard to get all this stuff. And then her heart missing too.
Where did that go?
Where'd that go?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, I don't know enough about methamphetamine. I mean, I'm an EMT, but like, I don't normally work with drug overdoses. I work in the prison system, which that sounds ironic that I don't work a lot with drug overdoses. But yeah, I don't really know too much about what meth does to your system. But I imagine if it's going through your bloodstream, they might have taken her heart.
So it didn't show up.
So it didn't show up in the toxicology screen. Mm-hmm. Maybe, I don't know. Honestly, I just thought it was so interesting because when you start, it's interesting too because I think the town has pushed that one theory so hard. A lot of people have kind of accepted it because a lot of articles I read.
If that's what they're only pushing out in the media, that's what
there was a lot of articles didn't even mention the meth theory. I finally saw it pop up on one because that podcast I listened to mentioned it, and I was like, man, nobody's talking about this. Did these guys just make it up, or are they just going on conspiracy theory? And then I was finally able to find a few articles that were mentioning it, and it was just like, man, like, I wonder, again, if this is true, how much of it is like an information warfare kind of thing? They're trying to like sweep this under the rug. Hey, let's make history forget about this whole incident.
I mean, I guess we'll never
Honestly,
know. But
yeah, we'll never know. Like, her body was too decomposed, and people aren't talking.
it's one of those
But
things.
that one nurse, she was in a wheelchair for months, just from smelling it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Live, laugh, love.
Live, laugh, pray. I'm changing it. I'm changing the system. I'm a wild card. Fuck my life and everything I try and do. Yeah.
That's it for this episode.